Everyone treats summer like it owes you happiness. Long days, pool parties, your best life on a loop. So what does it mean when you feel worse? The summer blues are real. It's why summer is one of the busiest stretches of the year for people starting therapy. Therapy is not only for when you're in crisis. Growth therapy is for all the moments when you decide you want more. More support, more clarity, more tools. Mental health isn't a destination you reach. It's something you build, and Grow makes that easier. Grow connects you with thousands of high-quality licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. The therapist you want takes your insurance on Grow. Grow accepts over 125 insurance plans. Sessions average $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In September of 1886, a man named Geronimo rode into a canyon in the Skeleton Mountains of northern Mexico and surrendered to the United States Army for the third and final time. He was approximately 63 years old. He had been fighting the American and Mexican governments with interruptions for nearly 30 years. At the time of his final surrender, he was leading a band of 38 people, men, women, and children, who had evaded 5,000 American soldiers, 500 Apache scouts, and the combined military forces of Sonora for the better part of a year. 38 people against 5,000 soldiers. And the army had not caught him. He chose to stop. And that distinction matters. Our history brief today covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
The season hasn't even started, but everyone's already picking a champion. Trade those predictions on Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform. Right now, the Rams are the favorites and trading at 16% to win it all, meaning a $100 trade pays out $590 if they lift the trophy. Download the Kalshi app and use code HOOPS to get $20 when you trade $20. KALSHI. Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
This day in history. On August 27, 1883, the volcano Krakatoa erupted with extraordinary force in Indonesia. The explosion was heard thousands of miles away, triggered devastating tsunamis, and altered global weather patterns for years. On August 27, 1928, the Kellogg Brand Pact was signed in Paris by 15 nations, pledging to renounce war as an instrument of national policy. Although it failed to prevent another world war, the treaty became an important milestone in the development of international law. Story of the day. The man that the world called Geronimo was born around 1823 in what is now southwestern New Mexico. His name was Goyacla, which meant one who yawns. The name Geronimo came later, from the Mexican soldiers who fought him, a corruption of the Spanish Geronimo, Jerome, which Mexican troops reportedly cried out in fear during his attacks, invoking Saint Jerome for protection. He was an Apache, a member of one of the bands of the Chiricahua Apache people who had lived in the mountains and deserts of what is now the American Southwest and northern Mexico for centuries before the arrival of either American or Mexican authority. He was not by birth a chief or even a war leader. He was a warrior and a medicine man. What made him a war leader was a night in March of 1851. He was away trading when Mexican soldiers from Sonora attacked his camp at Janos. When he returned, he found his mother, his wife, and his 3 children among the dead. The grief and the rage that followed transformed him. He went on raids against Mexican settlements with a ferocity that became legendary. He survived wounds that killed other men. He was credited by the people who fought alongside him with supernatural powers, with the ability to walk without leaving tracks, to know the future, to survive things that should have killed him. Some of this was legend, built by people who needed to explain an inexplicable man. Some of it, by documented record, however, was simply true. The Apache Wars that consumed the American Southwest from the 1860s through the 1880s were not, at their root, a simple story of savagery and civilization. They were a story of dispossession. The Apache had been promised a reservation in their homeland in 1872 and had largely honored that agreement. Then in 1876, under pressure from Arizona settlers and the mining interests moving into this Apache territory, the federal government dissolved the reservation and ordered this tribe removed to the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona, a hot, disease ridden lowland that the Apache called Hell's 40 Acres. Geronimo fled rather than comply. He was returned, and he fled again and again. Each flight produced raids. Each raid produced reprisals. Each reprisal produced more raids. The cycle was not random. It was the consequence of a government that made promises that it did not keep, to people it did not respect, about land that it intended to take regardless. The final campaign began in May 1885, when Geronimo broke out of the San Carlos reservation with a band of followers, fed by a rumor, possibly deliberate, that the army was planning to hang him and other Apache leaders. What followed was one of the most remarkable episodes in the history of American military operations. General George Crook pursued him with a force that included Apache scouts, men from other Apache bands serving the army, in a conflict that divided the Apache people as profoundly as the external pressure. Crook cornered Geronimo in Mexico in March of 1886 and negotiated a surrender. Geronimo agreed to return to Arizona with his band, serve 2 years in exile, and then be returned to the reservation. But then Geronimo changed his mind. Drinking mezcal the night after the agreement, alarmed by rumors that he would be executed despite the terms, he simply bolted again, taking about 20 people with him back into the Sierra Madre. Crook was blamed by his superiors and replaced by General Nelson Miles. Miles assembled a force of 5,000 soldiers, about a quarter of the entire United States Army, to run down a band that never numbered more than a few dozen. They could not catch him. The final surrender came in September of 1886 in Skeleton Canyon of southern Arizona. Lieutenant Charles Gatewood, one of the few American officers Geronimo trusted, had located him through Apache intermediaries and convinced him to meet with Miles. Miles offered terms. Geronimo and his people would be sent east, held as prisoners of war, and eventually reunited with their families and the rest of the tribe. Geronimo accepted. He laid down his rifle. He shook hands with Miles, and the war was over. And then the terms were broken almost immediately. The Apache tribe, including the Apache scouts who had served the United States Army faithfully, including the Apache who had never left the reservation, including the women and children who had been nowhere near the fighting, were all loaded onto trains. All of them. Approximately 500 people shipped to Fort Marion in Florida. then to Mount Vernon Barracks in Alabama. The climate was catastrophically wrong for people from the desert of Southwest. Tuberculosis killed them in significant numbers. Children were separated from families and sent to Indian industrial schools in Pennsylvania. The institutions, whose explicit mission was, in the words of their founder, to kill the Indian and save the man. Geronimo spent the rest of his life as a prisoner of war. He was never allowed to return to his homeland. He was exhibited at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. He appeared in Theodore Roosevelt's inaugural parade in 1905, one of six Native American chiefs chosen to represent in the parade's choreography the conquered peoples of the continent. He sold photographs of himself and bows and arrows to tourists. He dictated his autobiography in 1905, one of the most important documents in the history of the American West. He applied repeatedly for permission to return to Arizona. He was refused every time. He died in February of 1909 at Fort Sill in Oklahoma, still a prisoner of war, 23 years after his surrender. He was approximately 86 years old. He died, according to his own account, regretting that he had surrendered. He had been promised terms, and the terms had not been honored. The History Brief. Today on History News, we're talking about one of the greatest tragedies in human history. It is not a battle, it is not a famine, but a virus. For centuries, historians have believed that European colonists brought smallpox to the Americas, where it devastated indigenous populations that had no natural immunity. The historical evidence has always been compelling, but now scientists say they finally have the DNA to prove all of this. According to recent reporting, researchers have rediscovered ancient smallpox DNA from naturally mummified human remains found in northern Chile, providing the first direct molecular evidence that the virus arrived in the Americas with European colonization. The discovery comes from the Camerones Valley in northern Chile, where archaeologists analyzed the remains of 13 naturally mummified individuals. Two of them, a young man and a woman, contained fragments of DNA from the variola virus, the virus that causes smallpox. Radiocarbon dating showed that these individuals died somewhere between 1492 and 1631, a period that spans the arrival of Europeans in the Americas and the early decades of Spanish conquest. But the biggest breakthrough came when scientists sequenced the virus itself. The ancient genomes were most closely related to European strains of smallpox, sitting evolutionarily between medieval European viruses and the strains that circulated in later centuries. In other words, the genetics tell the same story that historians had long suspected. The virus came from Europe. That might sound obvious. After all, history books have long taught that Europeans introduced smallpox to the New World. But until now, that conclusion rested largely on just written accounts, letters, government records, and missionary reports written by Europeans themselves. This is different. This is biological evidence. The virus itself has survived long enough to testify, and its testimony matches the historical record. The consequences were obviously catastrophic. Smallpox spread through indigenous communities that had never encountered the disease before. Entire villages disappeared. Political systems collapsed. Some historians estimate that introduced diseases, including smallpox, measles, influenza, and others, killed millions of indigenous people in the centuries following European contact, fundamentally reshaping the history of the Americas. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different series and videos that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
Cozy season is ahead, and you'll be spending way more time inside. Is your home ready? Don't worry. With Wayfair, you can upgrade your space without breaking the bank. Score up to 70% off during their Labor Day clearance on furniture, area rugs, mattresses, and more. Plus, surprise flash deals you can't miss. Whether it's one room or the whole house, Wayfair has pieces for every style and budget.
Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/Libsyn. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
A text says, "You're on my mind." A bouquet from 1-800-Flowers says, "You're my everything." Heartfelt moments belong in the real world, not just your phone. For 50 years, 1-800-Flowers has helped millions of people make memories that'll last a lifetime with gifts they'll cherish forever. Their expertly curated arrangements and gift baskets ship nationwide with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Don't wait for the next big moment. Make it when you visit 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.